What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the debut album by Jonathan Davis of Korn. Basically, this solo album is called Black Labyrinth, and it came out in the spring of 2018. Now, back when this album first came out, I was originally going to review this during my break in 2018, but I just never got around to it. This is definitely something I was listening to in that gap. This is definitely something I was listening to in that hiatus I took in 2018. With some excellent stuff here. I definitely appreciated like the previous Korn album before this one, which was the Serenity of Suffering from 2016. That was a pretty excellent album. So I was definitely stoked for a Jonathan Davis solo album just because I figured it'd be pretty good. And it basically is. That's the concept of it. It's a definite highlight, not maybe like a full blown classic, but definitely pretty damn well close to it. I'd have to say it's definitely a top notch record. Definitely one of the more recent late 2010s rock albums I can think of that's just state of the art. I'd have to say there's definitely some sheer quality here and definitely an underappreciated type one that just doesn't get enough, that seemingly doesn't get enough respect. It kind of, that just seemingly doesn't get enough respect. It kind of quietly came out as far as that pitch kind of went. Jonathan Davis was around in like the summer of 2018, but he only had two singles, and basically I think most folks probably thought that this was just like a Korn album that just dropped in 2018, something like that. What it is, I mean, a lot of these songs on here are pretty similar to the fashion of Korn. Just they feel like Korn leftovers or just Korn late singles, pitches like that. If you have like a Korn third or fourth single, something that relative pitch, it just feels like another Korn single. But the thing about it is these are just excellent songs. This is kind of the concept. I mean, John Davis definitely keeps the haunting and head case type aesthetic as far as that particular kind of goes. Despite the fact that this came out in May, this is still some pretty shrill type stuff that this get in particular. I would definitely have to say some ghastly type stuff that this works and has a lot of appeal. There are makeshift songs on here. There's definitely some backyard smokish type tunes. There's some nightclub songs on here. There's just a good assortment. So this is a pretty varietized album. Just covers a lot of bases and it does it well, I'd have to say. So there's definitely some excellent concepts about this. So there were kind of pseudo three singles. I'm just going to talk about two of them because one of which is just kind of more of like a promotional single. But I do still, it didn't chart, but I still would have to say that there was some excellent ones on here. I'm trying to think, but basically at least the two official singles were What It Is and then Basic Needs. But then there was a third, there was a single in between like base or everyone came out after What It Is, kind of like in the spring of 2018, some pitches like that I'd say. But we'll go ahead, I'll just go ahead and talk about all three of the singles. We'll just talk about it in that fashion. It's no different, so we'll look after it. But basically What It Is, this is a real nice one. Good luck for John Davis as far as this particular pitch kind of goes. It's like a crisp, kind of gloomy Dracula like drear of a song. I had to say in particular it's like a great late 2010s rock single. I definitely had to say, and it's just a cleaner cut song than normal Korn, I'd have to say. Pretty dope concept to get that particular one. Just an excellent concept, just a real crisp type feel that this song particularly kind of has. It's really like the concept of it. Really feels like something trill to kind of hear in like September, October, some pitches like that. It's just a pretty good summer single as well, I'd say. It's a good organized type song that just has a lot of good affability about it. It's real nice. I mean, the beautiful thing about this particular song is just how clean cut it happens to be. It's just an affable type one that just works extremely well. I'd have to say it's just marketed well, and it just has a lot of good radio appeal about it. It's just an interesting. It's a pretty banner song for like late 2010s. I'd have to say anything past like about the spring or summer of 2017 to about the end of 2019 when the 2010s ended. I'd have to say this is a good song to just kind of have in rotation. Not sure how much has been played in recent times, circa 2023, 2024, but it is a good relative late 2010s highlight as far as that pitch goes. It's a real nice staple, that particular radio sound that just had a lot of appeal and good charm about it, I'd have to say. So that's a nice one. Everyone was kind of the second single, even though it didn't chart, it was just kind of like pseudo, like a promotional single, things like that, I'd have to say. But this is basically like the song's basically like a rowdier kind of turn up for nightclubs, I'd have to say in particular. It's a pretty nice one. It's like a pounding, kind of haunting nightlife feels that this song particularly kind of has. And the song is just some pounding and haunting nightlife, I'd have to say in particular. And the song just feels like a late Korn single, I'd have to say in particular. It's a real nice one. It has the typical kind of Korn fashion of a hook on here. Just some excellent type stuff that John Davis does with this particular song. Definitely like the fact of getting some nightclub sheerness as far as that particular kind of goes. It's some excellent stuff. Definitely some great turn up. This is one that can be a backyard smokage type section, but can also this is one that can be a backyard smokage type session, but can also be a pretty good glistening type nightclub type song that just has that relative appeal. This is a pretty shredding type one. Definitely has some great riffage on here. I'd say in particular, so it's a pretty good highlight. Then Basic Needs is the third single. This is definitely a more dusky type song. Definitely appreciate the concept of this. It's a little bit more makeshift compared. I mean, I feel like What It Is a pretty good makeshift type song just to kind of have on like a cruise home. Just got done with work, some pitches. A little bit of turn up in like a minor sense. It's a good one that gets you excited. But Basic Needs, a little bit more typical kind of makeshift type fashion, this work shift type appeal. Probably something you could hear at work, just depending upon the fashion of the place where you work and pitches like that. If you work at Hot Topic, something like that, I'd say this would be a good song to kind of play there. Some of those type pitches, just depending upon the vibes. But yeah, just for some standard kind of dishwashing makeshift and pitches like that. And this car rides home, this is like a real nice one. This is like a dusky kind of shrill, dark ballad feel that this song particularly kind of has. Is just like a good haunting radio commerce fun of a song, I'd have to say. And this is just some decent makeshift for fall, I would definitely feel like. So this is a pretty highlighted one. Definitely appreciate the vibes of this particular one. This is a real nice one. Now, back in the day, I didn't listen to this song as much, but I would have to say it's a pretty nice one. I do appreciate the appeal of it. Just a real standard type one. Normally, when the tempo kind of switches, rock singles kind of have like sometimes these rock singles kind of falter just because you miss the vibes, like the more up tempo type moments. But this is a one. Basic Needs was a good example, one that pulled off the vibe, and this was a charting single, so it did pretty well. It was like a top 20 single on the rock charts as far as that pitch kind of went along with this. Just a real nice haunting type one to get for some good commerce. It's a good bop to kind of have. Just if if working the fall is just a little bit strenuous pitches like that, this is a good one to unwind to. Go pick up some beers, pitches like that. Just go get some Burger King, some of those type pitches. Just some excellent type stuff. This would have to say, but that's the particular pitch behind it. So those are the three singles. Basically, there's 13 songs on this particular album. Out of those 13, I wound up recommending to you 10. So it's a pretty dope concept. I'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and talk about the three songs I don't recommend on here. So they just would be Final Days, Your God, and it'd be Final Days, Your God, and Gender. So talk about these. Basically, two of these are just some tribal type ones and kind of freakish, more offhanded type ones. Like I really didn't like the production instrumentation value of Final Days. That was kind of the same sort of pitch and like a lesser extent on Gender. Both of those just kind of had some tribalized type ones, which is okay in certain senses, but just the vibe and the concoction as to how those turned out just didn't work out for me on those particular ones. And I kind of felt like Your God was kind of a flat and limp type um, raucous kind of party starter as far as that pitch kind of went. I mean, it was a good attempt to have some turn up. There are some good turn up songs on here, like Everyone, Happiness, Walk On By, some of those particular type ones, and some of those type pitches. But this one was just kind of a limper one that just didn't really nail it with like the riffage and pitches like that, I'd have to say. But that's the base concept. I mean, for the most part, this album's pretty damn well close to a classic. If I had liked just one more song, this would have gotten. If I had recommended just one more song, this would have gotten like a 10 out of 10. But it's pretty damn close, I'd have to say. So basically, talk about some of these. Basically, Medicate's a pretty nice one. This is like a great eerie smoking gem, I'd have to say in particular. This is like a more unworldly song than usual Korn, I'd have to say in particular. But this is just some haunting fun for like hangout sessions. I'd have to say this is a pretty shrill song, like I would feel. This is definitely a pretty shrill song, I'd have to say, and it's pretty hooky also. This one has one of the better hooks on the particular album. John Davis really packed this album full of some good hooks on here. Some good ones would be Medicate. Everyone's pretty good. What It Is pretty nice. Basic Needs is pretty nice. I want to say that like Walk On By is a pretty nice one. So there's some pretty hooky type ones on here. Just typical Korn fashion, some of those type ones, but they just are real singable and just pitches like that, just to be able to have some of these just within a haunting sense. So those are some nice ones. Another kind of eerie type one that's pretty similar to Basic Needs is The Secret. This is a pretty nice one. It's like an eerie spook of a ballad. It's like an eerie spook of a ballad. I'd have to say this is like another gem for some grim makeshift commerce. I'd have to say in particular, pretty dope concept for that. And this is just like some malaise kind of gothic traverse. So I'd have to feel like, so if you do like the concept of Basic Needs, you need some more workship type ones. What It Is, Basic Needs are some ones for that. I'd say The Secret's another one just for like the Secret's another one for like that basic kind of work shift malaise as far as that pitch goes. But these are all autumn oriented. So I just would have to say the concept of just the more cooler months of the year after summer starts to wear down, pitches like that. These are just some nice ones to kind of get this within an outing type sense as far as that kind of goes. But The Secret's a good companion to Basic Needs. It's a little bit more eerie and whimsical, I'd have to say. Happiness is another highlight. This is like a good night venue fare of a song, I'd have to say. It's like a social hangout bop, I would definitely feel like. And this is just some backyard smokage, I would definitely have to say. It's like a typical Korn-like cut, I would definitely feel like. It's a pretty thrilling song. This is a good pairing. This is a good pairing with like Everyone. Happiness is a pretty good pairing with Everyone. I'd have to say these are both some nice turn up type songs just to get for like some night venues and pitches like that. Just the rowdiness and factor of these particular type songs, just the overall riffage and just engagement factor of these is pretty high. I'd have to say these are some good 1-2 punches to kind of get on here. Definite good concepts. A pretty nice one that just has some good pep about it would be Underneath My Skin. This is kind of an interesting pitch for Jonathan Davis and the Korn type fare as far as that particular kind of goes. It's like a grim but breezy kind of autumn pep of a song, I'd have to say. This is kind of an in a good mood but kind of ghastly type tune, I would definitely feel like, and this is just a nice companion with Everyone. So this is one, just like with Everyone and Happiness, these are definitely some good turn up songs to kind of get here, but this one just has a little bit more breeziness about it. It's just interesting that some of these songs on here do have some degree of like actual just like whimsicalness just within that fashion, just a little bit of breeziness and just overall pep that's just different from some of the Korn type fashion. Most of the time Korn is in a pretty ghastly and just overall grim type mood just within that normal gloom. But some of these songs on here, like there's at least a couple like Underneath My Skin, and I would probably say Walk On By, that just kind of have that particular fashion that are just kind of, they're just a little bit more whimsical just within that relative sense. But it's some good stuff. I mean, they pull out the vibes. John Davis doesn't sell out or lose his particular good, charming aesthetic as far as that particular kind of goes with this. So it's just a nice one. It's just kind of one. It's a good way to kick off the album, just to say in particular. It's just kind of haunting, but it just has the breeziness factor of it too. It just feels like some pop rock, I would have to say, in like a gothic sense. It's a pretty good concept. Please Tell Me is a pretty nice one. I like the production fare on this particular one, especially in the second verse. It's like a darker kind of soul and ruminating hazer of a song that I had to say in particular. This song's pretty insular, but it pulls the vibe off. I definitely have to say it's like some typical ruminating fashion, I would have to say, from John Davis. Just stuff like that. John Davis is pretty good at these type ones. There's some real good kind of thought-provoking type stuff. I'd say it's like a creeping charm. The song just has some creeping charm, like typical John Davis and Korn type fashion. It has the same particular. So it's just a nice and really kind of insular type one. Just good for like smoking a blunt, something in the home, something like that. Maybe there's not some fellas around, or maybe you're not with your social circle. Just kind of for dolo as far as that pitch kind of goes. But it's just some good ruminating to kind of get in like a haunting sense. Really has some good instrumentation type here in this particular one. And then What You Believe is a pretty nice one. This is like a synthy kind of pseudo nightclub spook of a song. I'd have to say in particular, this one's just a manic and debilitating vibes that this song particularly kind of gives off. Debilitating parts of this song particularly kind of gives off, and this is just like a vanilla kind of Korn rhetoric. I'd have to say it's a pretty good concept. Definitely a pretty ghastly type one. This is definitely a head case of a song, typical Korn type fashion. This is definitely like a Black Labyrinth of a song. I'd have to say just a real kind of haunting and overall this pitch of like a song that just has that typical kind of creeping fact. This is great for like October. This one's probably one of the most debilitating songs on this particular album. I'd say this is probably one of the most shrill type ones, and just overall, I don't want to say disease, but just relatively manic and just overall just exclaimed like this real kind of ghastly type one that just has a lot of just like typical kind of like concepts of this like I can't really think of words beyond manic, but just real some crazy type factor just to really say within that pitch. I suppose that's a real nice one. But then real nice. I really like the production fair, unlike the verses on that particular song. What You Believe is pretty nice, and I do like the counselor type chick that's talking at the beginning of the song and just having that speech that she makes on there. It's pretty good concept, nice touch on there as well. But I'd say Walk On By is a pretty nice one as well. This is kind of one that's an interesting type one. It's like a jivey kind of nightlife embrace. I'd have to say pretty good concept for that. It's like a dark and shrill but breezy and kind of easygoing aesthetic that this song particularly kind of has. This song has a pretty solid hook, and this is a pretty social song. This one's a pretty good pairing with like Happiness, Everyone, Underneath My Skin, some of those type ones, some of the more lively type songs and rowdy type songs. But this one just has a little bit more of like a breezy type factor about it. A little bit more similar to Underneath My Skin, I'd have to say. It's a real breezy type one, kind of in between like Medicate and Underneath My Skin, where it has the breeziness factor, something like Medicate, but it also has the shrill type factor of like Underneath My Skin, a little bit of Everyone, some of those type pitches. So it's just some dope concepts to get some of that. This would definitely have to say I like the whimsical type vibe of Walk On By. So that's a pretty, so Black Labyrinth is a pretty pitch of an album, I had to say. So I'm going to go ahead and give this album like a 9.25 out of 10. I'd have to say in particular, this is just some highlighted type stuff just to kind of get here. Just pretty damn well close to a classic. Like I was saying, if I had just appreciated one more song, this would have gotten a 10 out of 10, I'd have to say. But it's just some pretty pitch vibes. 9.25 is nothing to shake a stick at. Definitely appreciated this overall fare. Very gothic and just oriented towards makeshift and pitches like that. It's social, has some good vibes just within that sense. And it's just really able to knock out these particular vibes with like a pretty high grade fashion, I'd say. So this is John Davis basically in his second wind of a prime, just would have to say. Years past like his debut in Korn in like the early mid 90s as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. This is some excellent stuff. This is an inspired album, has some great singles on here and just overall the pitch. So the social score is probably going to get a 10 out of 10. The social score is probably going to get a 10 out of 10. Just nails so many bases and covers them so well. I'd have to say there's some excellent hooks on here, just some good fashion, some haunting type fashion, and it works just within a makeshift sense. It kind of brings gothic to the mainstream and makeshift as far as that pitch kind of particularly goes. So this is a casual album. Definitely has some of that casual rock appeal, just late 2010s. This is definitely like a late 2010s rock highlight. I have to say in particular, just some real haunting stuff, that has a lot of appeal in this overall marketing. It's just I kind of feel like maybe some of these songs didn't charge as heavily as they needed to, but I would say that what it is a pretty big hit. Basic Needs is a good bop as well. I'd say it's just too bad that Everyone didn't chart a little bit better. But I think the concept about it was is if solo John Davis had charted more, we wouldn't have gotten more Korn. But this is definitely a pretty excellent detour, I'd have to say, and I do recommend it quite a bit. So that's the concept. So basically, in terms of the future, like John Davis has put out records with Korn. There's an album The most recent Korn album was Requiem, which came out in early 2022. So I suspect that there'll be another Korn album down the road as far as that pitch goes. But there's definitely some excellent type vibes here. Once again, this is a great detour pitches like that. Real haunting aesthetic, and I do recommend this quite a bit, I'd have to say. 9.25 score, 10 social.